Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today. Usually we take a stack of articles, maybe a new business book, and we try to find the life hacks.
On the productivity tips.
Exactly. But today we're stepping into what feels more like a crime scene investigation.
It really does. It's an investigation into a feeling that I think a lot of people, specifically men, have been having. That feeling of inversion.
Right, that sense that the world has just flipped upside down. Up is down, sanity is now pathology, and reality itself feels like it's being rewritten in real time.
And that is exactly where today's source material lands. We are unpacking a book called Hive Mind Fever, Mass Formation Psychosis Contagion, as Female Hysteria Goes Critical via Social Media by Conrad Riker.
That's a mouthful.
It is, and I have to warn you, Riker is not writing a self-help book.
Yep.
He's not telling you how to make your bed. He explicitly calls this book a war report.
It's a field manual for the awake man. It's for the guy who's tired of apologizing for his existence and wants to understand how we got here. So, before we descend into this rabbit hole, and believe me, it is a deep one, I need you to do us a favor. Hit that like and subscribe button right now.
Please do. It really helps the algorithm find this content and get it to the men who need to hear it.
And look, we're going to give you the tactical overview here. We're going to map out the battlefield, but Riker's work is dense.
Oh, it's packed with charts, footnotes, data that we just can't fully cover. If you want the full arsenal, you have to buy this book. It's on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
Absolutely. So let's set the mission. We're going to trace Riker's argument from the psychological, this concept of the hive mind, all the way to the solution, the roadmap for reclaiming power.
And the diagnosis starts somewhere you wouldn't expect. He doesn't start with modern politics. He starts in the Middle Ages.
Right, with the digital dancing plague. This was the part that really hooked me. He's talking about the 14th century choreomania.
Right, exactly. In the 14th century, you had these bizarre outbreaks of mass hysteria. Hundreds of people, mostly women, would just enter a trance. They'd twitch, convulse, and dance in perfect sync.
Until they literally dropped dead.
From exhaustion, heart failure, yeah. It was a psychological contagion.
And Riker looks at that historical horror show, points his finger right at TikTok and says, it's the same picture.
It's the same psychological flaw, just weaponized by an algorithm. When you scroll through TikTok, what do you see? Thousands of young women using the exact same audio, making the same facial expressions, reciting the same slogans.
He argues it's not creativity, it's a hive mind.
They're nodes in a network, twitching to algorithmic commands just like those dancers in the 1300s.
He breaks down the mechanism for this, which I found, fascinating. He called it the feminine feedback loop.
And this is the engine of the whole thing. Riker says the female psyche is wired for social consensus. In a small tribe, that's a survival tool. It keeps everyone together.
But when you plug that into a global digital network,
It goes critical. The loop is simple. Emotion gets you attention. Attention gets you validation. And validation triggers more emotion.
it's a self-reinforcing cycle. You're not an individual anymore. You're performing for the hive.
And that performance detaches you from reality. If the hive decides the sky is green and you get 10,000 likes for saying it, your brain chemistry actually rewrites what you see.
Speaking of brain chemistry, we have to talk about the hardware. Riker doesn't just blame social media. He goes after the pharmaceuticals, the SSRI trap.
This is where the book gets incredibly controversial, but he brings the data. He cites a study that women are 2.3 times more likely to be prescribed antidepressants than men.
Okay, but he goes a step further. He argues we're witnessing a chemical castration of the female psyche.
He does. That is a heavy term.
Yeah, he's not talking about testosterone. He's applying it to women.
His argument is that SSRIs function by emotionally flattening you. They cut off the lows, sure, but they also shave off the peaks, the joy, the instinct, the raw connection.
And he says this specifically blunts maternal instincts and empathy.
Replaces them with a kind of detached narcissism, which leads right into his chapter on the death of motherhood.
The idea that motherhood has shifted from a sacred duty to a lifestyle choice, like picking a handbag.
He uses that example for Rolling Stone that was pretty visceral.
I remember reading that. It was stark.
A 2017 article where a woman celebrated her period because it meant she wasn't pregnant. Riker just stops and asks the reader, what kind of civilization toasts to the absence of new life?
And the medical establishment is cheering this on, the ACOG statement.
The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. In 2023, they labeled being child-free by choice a health-positive decision.
He calls it the medicalization of childlessness.
Exactly. So we have the diagnosis, mass psychosis fueled by algorithms and locked in by SSRIs. But how did we get here? Riker argues it wasn't an accident. There's a blueprint.
This is the root cause section, the long march through the institutions.
He traces it all back to the Frankfurt School and a philosopher named Herbert Marcuse.
Repressive tolerance. I've heard the term, but Riker explains it as the operating system for everything we see today.
It really is. In 1964, Marcuse wrote that to create a truly liberated society, you can't tolerate everything. You have to be intolerant of right-wing or traditional views.
Because those views preserve the oppressive status quo. So true tolerance requires suppressing the wrong ideas.
Precisely. And that gave the bureaucracy a moral license to silence dissent. It's why you can be expelled from college for misgendering someone, but you can call for destroying the nuclear family and get tenure.
And we see this weaponized in education with Title IX.
Title IX is the battering ram. It was supposed to be about sports. But Riker points to the Dear Colleague letters from the Department of Education.
These weren't laws, right? They were just memos.
Bureaucratic memos that redefine sex discrimination to include subjective feelings of safety. It created a shadow legal system on campus, a star chamber as he calls it.
Where a feeling is treated as evidence of a crime.
And he says this trained an entire generation of women to use state power to resolve their personal conflicts.
But Riker goes even deeper. He attacks the whole idea that men and women are the same. He brings in biology to counter the blank slate idea.
He has a whole chapter called The Hardware Gap. He cites a UC7 fMRI study where they scanned brains solving logic problems. The result: men and women got the same answers.
But they use entirely different parts of the brain to get there.
We literally think differently. It's hardware, not software. And he argues that when you force dysfunction, you get, well, that anecdote about the MIT robotics lab.
Oh, that story was incredible. Paint the picture for us.
Okay, so he visits this top-tier robotics lab, co-ed team, massive deadline, they're 40% behind schedule. Riker looks at the whiteboards. They aren't covered in code.
They're covered in conflict resolution charts.
Conflict resolution charts. Because a male engineer fixed a motor without calling a consensus meeting first, and a female team member felt excluded. The entire team stopped working to process her feelings.
He argues inclusion in this context just acts as a brake on actually getting things done.
He calls it the entropy of feelings, and he backs it with economic data. Fortune 500 companies with male CEOs delivered 17% higher returns. The market rewards male traits: decisiveness, risk-taking.
But our culture labels those exact traits as toxic.
Which brings us to the war on masculinity itself.
The War on Fatherhood chapter, that was tough to read. He calls family courts feminist tribunals.
The stats are undeniable. 78% of divorces are initiated by women, and most cite emotional neglect, not abuse or adultery.
It's no fault divorce used as a tool to strip assets.
Riker argues it's a mechanism for dispossession. The state incentivizes family breakup, and once a father is in that system, his very masculinity is used against him.
The story of the father in Portland, that was chilling.
It was dystopian. The guy is fighting for custody, and a court-appointed therapist, not a judge, a therapist, orders him to deconstruct his patriarchal speech patterns before he can see his kids.
What does that even mean? Deconstruct his speech pattern?
He was given a list. Stop using an authoritarian tone. Replace the word son with child. Riker says the system isn't trying to be fair. It's trying to reprogram you.
And this term, toxic masculinity, Riker points out it didn't start as an insult.
No, and this is important. It was coined by Shepard Bliss. It was meant to describe self-destructive behaviors in men who didn't have fathers. But it was hijacked.
Now, if you're stoic, you're emotionally unavailable. If you're competitive, you're aggressive.
And the casualties of this war are the boys. The boy crisis. The numbers don't lie. Boys are 3.2 times more likely to be medicated for behavior issues. We are pathologizing boyhood itself.
We drug them into compliance, and we strip away their spaces.
Like the Boy Scouts.
A massive loss, according to Riker. The Boy Scouts were pressured by corporate sponsors chasing ESG scores to adopt inclusion frameworks.
So they let girls in.
They let girls in, softened the activities, and destroyed the brotherhood dynamic. Boys need male-only spaces to learn how to be men. By removing that, you remove the scaffolding for maturity.
Okay, so the diagnosis is bleak, but the book is a war report. So what's the strategy? He talks about the red pill, but he tries to reclaim that term.
He does. He knows it gets a bad rap. He defines the red pill not as anger, but as cognitive disinfection, or epistemic hygiene. Hygiene, I like that. The idea that the lies we've been fed are contaminants.
Exactly. Taking the red pill isn't about hating women, it's about clarity. It's about seeing the matrix of gynocentrism and simply refusing to play the game by those rules anymore.
So what does that look like in practice? He proposes the Iron Tribe model.
This is the practical application. Men need to build male-only brotherhoods. But, and he is very clear on this, these are not support groups. You don't pass a talking stick and cry.
We don't need to process trauma, he says.
Right. Men bond through action. The Iron Tribe is about fitness, finances, and accountability. Are you solvent? Are you strong? Are you keeping your word?
He also talks about monk mode, which sounds religious, but he frames it as a strategic withdrawal.
It's about quarantining yourself from the noise. He highlights men going to monasteries or adopting stoicism, not for religion, but for structure and silence, to reconnect with the archetype of the king.
Now we have to address the elephant in the room, Andrew Tate. Riker defends him. That's going to be a sticking point for a lot of people.
It is, but Riker leans into it. He sees the persecution of Tate as proof of his theories. He argues Tate wasn't targeted for crime. He was targeted because he broke the script.
The script that men should be apologetic and soft.
Exactly. Tate taught young men to be strong, rich, and unapologetic. The Tate Doctrine. Riker sees him as a symbol of resistance to the dominant narrative.
And for the guys who aren't going to become kickboxing tycoons, there's MGTOW men going their own way.
Riker presents data here that challenges the lonely loser stereotype. He cites surveys where MGTOW men report lower anxiety and higher productivity than their married peers.
Because they aren't losing half their assets in divorce court.
Exactly. By opting out, they quarantine themselves from the feedback loop and the legal risks. He sees it as a valid strategy, a strategic withdrawal.
Which leads to his final message.
Well,
Well, it's not comforting. He says, I do not offer hope. I offer reality.
It's a powerful distinction. He argues that hope is passive. Hope is waiting for someone else to save you. Riker says, forget hope. You need clarity.
Clarity is knowing the building is on fire so you can find the exit.
Exactly. He urges the listener to be the cure. And being the cure means refusing to be sick. Refuse to apologize. Refuse to medicate your boys. Refuse to participate in institutions that hate you.
He asks the ultimate question. Is the rebellion walking away or is it staying and rebuilding?
He calls it the guardian of civilization. If the strong men check out, who's left to hold up the sky? It's a challenge he leaves you with.
It's a massive argument, and honestly, we've skipped over so much detail. The neurochemistry chapters alone are worth the price of the book.
We really did just scratch the surface.
That's why I'm telling you, if this resonated, if you felt that click of recognition, you need the full manual. Go buy Hive Mind Fever by Conrad Riker. It's on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books right now.
And for the real-time updates, because this war is moving fast, you need to follow him. Go to @Conrad Riker on Substack. His analysis there is even sharper than the book.
This deep dive was about looking at the world through a different lens, a lens that's usually blocked. Whether you agree with Riker or find him terrifying, you can't ignore the signal.
The signal is loud and clear. Wake up.
Thanks for listening to the deep dive. If you value these unfiltered conversations, please like and subscribe. It helps us keep the lights on and the truth flowing. Stay awake out there.